Oh, okay, we're back recording again now. Just start fresh.
Okay, just as a lead in, we're going to be following the procedures.
I do our roll call, Mr. President.
I did already.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you.
So everybody's present, so, okay. Again, we're going to be following the Gallagher procedures we assumed, the last couple of years. And so we're going to be working with SMART goals, results, and we want this to be a collaborative discussion. So we really want to focus on off track on the various objectives. And as you can tell from the review that Mike wrote, since COVID, we've had a number of challenges with personnel hiring and so forth. And having talked with Mike and looked at the objectives and the results, I think this has impacted objectives number 1 and number 2 the most highly. So objective 1 was the hiring of the administrator, and objective 2 was the office space. So most of our discussion is going to be circled around that, I think, and then centered later on in SMART goals around that. So I would like to get rid of goals 3, 4, and 5 first and start with those. So that's what I'm suggesting. We want to turn to goal 3. And what I'd like to do on these so we can move through them is to actually just ask each manager if you think that particular objective was on track or off track, and if on track, if you could just give a letter like A, B, C, or D in terms of A, B, or C, I guess, in terms of how far on track it was. If that's agreeable to everybody, and then we can today's discussion, then we can have that afterwards. Otherwise, we can move on. So the first one has to do with programs, which you can read in front of you. And I guess I'll just start. I'll start with Chris first. Chris, do you think we're on track or off track on that particular objective?
We're starting with number 5.
Number 4. Under programs, which is on page 3.
Okay, I have number 5 as programs. Am I looking at the wrong one, or
2023 or 2024?
We have 4 for programs and one. No.
I mean, that's my I'd like me to step away again.
He's looking at the graph 2024 SMART goals.
Chris, you've got to move to 2023. You got the 2024 SMART goal. We're gonna do that.
I see it now. Sorry about that.
Okay. So I can come back to you. Why don't I go to Doug? Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, Doug, we'll go to Doug. You think it's on track or off track?
I did on track with an A.
Okay.
I think some of the realizations that came out of this whole process, or this is the collaborations, isn't it? Yeah, to be able to reach out to University of Iowa. I mean, Minnesota and St. Thomas, we had a long-going relationship with St. Thomas, but to bring in the University of Minnesota and the other university, and then some of these other outreach from staff, I think that's good progress in that direction. I think we've done well.
Okay, thank you. Dave Bakke, you have any thoughts?
Oh, I have lots of thoughts here. I'm just trying to catch up I'm just opening up your document, Steve. Is that the one we're looking at now? The one that you just sent out today?
No, that's the 2024 SMART goals.
Yes.
Mike had sent them out before.
Right. And I have what are we looking at?
The 2023 SMART goals.
The one that Mike sent out.
Right.
This year in
June 3rd.
right?
In review, yeah.
With the comments in red.
Yeah, I've got those in front of me. Here's my response to those SMART goals. I think all 7 of them are admirable, but I think that's a lot. It's a heavy load. And I guess I would ask Mr. Kinney if he could prioritize the top 3. It would be helpful to me as we move forward and meet with him on a quarterly basis.
Dave, I think you're on 24, 20 SMART goals.
There are
We're
7,
about
right?
valuing Mike's performance for the past year.
There are 6 from 2023.
Correct, and we're on number 4.
Okay, so I don't have, what
If so-
Mike sent then.
I'll resend out.
I can pull it up if someone wants to share screen.
Yes, I can do that as well. Thank you. And I'll just Manager Baki just resent it, so,
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we move on to Chris? Chris, do you have any thoughts on number 4?
I think it was fine. I'm giving him a B+.
Okay. Manager Anderson?
I'm looking at number 4 here.
It's basically the R&D.
Yeah, no. Give me a minute here. Yeah, I rated this as, okay, I gave it a B.
Okay. And I gave it an A also. And now we're back to Manager Baki.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not prepared to give any grades. I haven't really looked at these. I assumed we were looking at 2024. I didn't realize we were going to actually review 2023 and give grades. So I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got 4 inputs anyway, so that's fine. So then moving on to the objective number 5 for 2023, which is our performance in terms of getting grants and in terms of money. And the goal was to be #1 grant recipient in CWF projects and practices in the state of Minnesota, and have at least a 25% average of grants to levy, a 3-year average of 25% or higher. And you can see the performance on the chart at the bottom. And of course, we're all familiar with the number of grants we're getting. So maybe Chris, want to start with you? How do you feel about that?
A+. Sorry.
I was gonna just note for the board that I also have on the agenda for Thursday night at the end of the meet is to some continued conversation. So I know that, so Manager Baki, if you're able to and want to provide some additional comment there, I think that could be considered as well.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to send them to me, Dave, after we go through, you know how we're doing it now, what questions we're asking. You can maybe make notes on each number, and then just when you have a chance to look at it, just send me a note of what your voting is and any thoughts you have, pro or con, and we can bring that into the whole. What I'm gonna do is bring all these comments together for a kind of a formal review just for the records, like I did last year. Okay.
Thank you. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Mike. Thank you so much. Because you've been to a lot of meetings, you've been involved, so we would benefit from your insights. So thank you. So Chris, back to you on number 5, performance on getting grants and trying to exceed the 25% ratio that we're trying to maintain. If we exceed it.
Obviously, this is one of our strengths. So I'm going to give Mike and his team an A for this.
Okay. Manager Anderson?
Well, I gave it a C because either I've been sleepwalking through this whole process and not understanding. I've never seen our goal be a percentage of the levy amount. And if it's 25% of the levy amount, that's way beyond or way below where we need to be for grants. But if it's even 25% above the levy, it's still not enough. Our project budget last year was $2.some million. So you can't have a levy or a goal on grants that are lower than that project budget. The goal is really to have that project area and then a portion of the program area be covered by grants. That's really the objective. But last year we spent almost $600,000, I think, of our levy on meeting the project requirements. And some of that was, Highway 61, a big portion of that was that overage of 300, I think, or something like that, 350 for that project alone. But again, several years ago, we had talked about doing phasing of our projects. And that was never implemented. And so what happens when you phase is what happened to Washington, South Washington, when they got their grant from the Lower St. Croix. They had phased out their projects. And when they got to, I think it was stage 3, which is what they were asking for, was more money because of some undiscovered thing. And, you know, it just got to be higher than what they expected. So by phasing, you know, we can protect ourselves in the future from having that kind of overrun, because we had COVID, we had everything that possibly could happen to that Highway 61 project. And of course, it was COVID, and it was, you know, higher prices right out of COVID. And then it was lowering prices as we got to it. And then the owner died, and there was that delay because of the family estate transfer and so forth. So I really have to do a C on this. I don't think we came close to doing what we should have done for the matching portion of the grants. And so I wonder if maybe, Mike, I need to sit with you maybe after this meeting and get maybe a better handle on what you mean by that 25%.
That was the objective, and nobody objected to it when we did it. But part of the problem, part of the issue here is that, you know, the general average for watersheds is under 10%.
Who cares about that? I don't care about what the other watersheds are doing. I care about what we're doing.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that there was never an expectation that we would be diving into our levy funds for that much project coverage. The idea was to get grants for those so that we could do all of them without dipping into our levy and keeping that levy pretty constant for the people that, you know, that are contributing to it. We have a small district. And I think, you know, where it kind of went haywire to me is that we were not getting the grants from the federal side that would have helped offset the portion that we ended up paying out of the levy.
Well, this past year, we were at 178%
Of what?
of the levy.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't realize the levy was the guide. It never occurred to me that would be it. I've never seen it in writing, so I was shocked by it, quite frankly.
Well,
I really was.
we do, well, for clarification, we do have a federal grant ongoing. And, you know, we're certainly in communication with other organizations, and we now started. I mean, the general sense, you know, people, at least at the staff level, peers, how do you guys keep doing that? And it's through our sequential diagnostic monitoring. This year now, our match will only be 10%.
Mhm.
Previously, it was 20%.
Mhm.
All the upfront stuff was,
Mhm.
it was, you know, things that,
You're talking about the match that we
Right.
pay for the levy,
Right.
but that doesn't explain the 25% over levy goal, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. 25% of the,
Well, I think we can look into this. I think
Yeah.
there's some misunderstanding of how
Yeah.
high the threshold should be. I mean,
we pay too much out of levy, is what I'm saying.
right. But,
So-
you know, we're number one in grants for the whole, out of 110 other organizations, so. And then we're way above 25%, and still number one,
Mhm.
so, but anyway, so I put down you for C. I'm gonna vote an A on this. Dave Baki, do you have any, do you know what we're talking about now, or maybe if you wanna hold up, that's fine too. And Doug, what did you vote on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to
considering-
hold off until I can send you some comments.
Well, I won't ask you anymore, that's fine, I understand. You don't, there was a table here, but you can't see the table, so that's fine.
I have it up on the screen.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I did an on-target and an A on this one. And it seems like the whole staff is pulling in the right direction on this. We're number one in the state. That's pretty hard to beat. This Smart Goals has nothing about the 61 project. And the 25% has been in there since this hit black and white. So I guess I'm not quite sure what the way upset about that piece. But I think compared to the others, yes, we are doing incredibly well. They may catch up with us, but in the meantime, we've got the ace in the hole and we're on target with this one.
Good, thank you. All right, then moving on then to number 6, which is basically managing the current 7 current being for 2023 major clean water fund grants. And Mike has written up some comments about the performance. We've had almost monthly reviews on this since most of the year, so we should all be pretty well up to date on it. So again, let's see if it's on track, and if it's on track, and then what you think the level of on track would be. So I'll start with Chris again. Chris?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, Steve.
We're on number 6. And we're gonna do on track, off track for the how well the 7 clean water fund grants were managed over 2023. And Mike has written a brief answer down here saying that everything was on track except the Grable pit, which we lost because we couldn't buy the property. But since then, we now have a substitute project to replace that opportunity. And we're now moving forward with that. If that helps you any.
Yeah, I see that now, sorry. We're on track with that one with the B+.
Okay. Doug?
I did an online or on track and an A on this one. We finished up 61. We finished up the sand filter. The along 97, the construction's going on right now. Modi Varn, they've moved in there today and heavy equipment, and they're moving what my excavator would call copious amounts of dirt. And they've done the survey behind my barn too for going in there, just waiting for more frost to go a little bit deeper into that muck. So, I mean, it's going.
Okay, thank you. Manager Anderson.
Yeah, I would do a B+ also and comment. We're allowed to make comments on that, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Okay. The comment is that I'd like to see a better process for negotiating land so that we have commitment from an owner and kind of lack of knowledge. We're not surprised at the late stage. We're on the gravel pit thing. And maybe that would help. It's just a suggestion that if we can work on tighter commitments from the property owners and the community, and we know that.
That is one of the variables, that big variables that we have to deal with. So any thoughts in that area would add value, obviously, right? Mike, I think you would agree with that because you're frustrated. I mean, look, I'm just thinking about the Bone Lake South property we've been trying to buy. In fact, I got a couple of thoughts I'm going to send you about that one because I think some of we might try there. But that's a good point, Manager. So thank you. I'm going to vote a nay on this one also, simply because we did move all these projects along in the phase it was into almost or near completion. And in the case of the one that got delayed, we were able to creatively find another solution, which would be as good or economically as good as the payoff we had from the first one. Going back to Manager Anderson, I think what would be good, since 25+% was the goal, and that wasn't changed or debated. I think as we set a new goal for the SMART goals for 2024, we should probably do some research and decide whether what level of target should be is probably a more appropriate or appropriate for our organization and what our goals are. So.
And the basis for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that finishes up the first. If you have any other comments on those, you can send them to me, but that finishes up the last 3. And then I think we should probably move back to the first 2, which would be the trying to hire and manage the assistant administrator or having a replacement strategy for if Mike if Mike leaves. And then the second one was the space and moving project that we're doing. So going to number 1, I think you can see in front of you. Do you have this, Chris, in front of you? Number 1 for administration.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Okay, good. So the three goals were develop a description, identify scope and responsibilities. That was due by July. Present a scope, job description, and funding availability if appropriate, request to the board by July. And board reviews and provides final determination to administrator regarding ability to fill the position in 2024. And the target on that was August 2023. And Mike, of course, has written a response here. Let's go through and again try to get at this, and then maybe we can certainly have more discussion on it. I'll start with Manager Anderson on this one first.
President Schmalz,
Yes, Chris.
could we have Mike talk a little bit more in depth on his comments regarding those three subcategories?
I think that's a good suggestion because this one was impacted a lot by our workforce situation. Mike, so why don't you go ahead and do that? Probably do it on the second one too. You want to make some additional comments?
Sure. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, these were still the goals that I set. So I did take responsibility for not moving them along in a more expeditious manner. But, some of it was based off of conversations I had with Doug Thomas and what direction he thought, given his experience, the district might entail. But we've also been trying to even just starting with that, coming up with a replacement. There are not many organizations that have deputy administrators. Only 2 of them ever had it. But then it's just strictly for the purpose of bringing in from a succession planning standpoint. And so there was a little bit of, I thought maybe it was admittedly too early. I wanted to get the first part done, and that was trying to find somebody. So I kind of allowed myself that. But also we were having a lot of internal strife, if you will. So things, we had 2 departures. I found out yesterday that was actually had been in the works for several months and unbeknownst to me. But some staff were aware of it. And basically, and this is a conversation, and I appreciate the fact that President Schmalz sent out some stuff about the workforce. I had a lot of pushback about bringing the office manager back into the office more than 1 day a week. And the other thing that was exasperating was we used to have the phone set up to just be answered by somebody. So this was even back when there were only 3 of us. I mean, obviously when it was me, I was at the office and I just answered it. We didn't have a phone tree or phone call or anything. So, but in the last year or so, then it was decided we do, use the recording, and I was getting a lot of complaints from people that nobody was answering the phone and nobody was getting back to them. I was receiving voice messages, calls, upset permit applicants pounding on the door. Doesn't anybody flipping work here? Blah, blah, blah. So I just said, this has got to get fixed, for one example, on multiple occasions. And it never got fixed until Bobby left. And then instantly Emily took over and it's fixed. So she answers all the phones and then we have the metrics on how many calls. It's not a big deal. It's not like we have a ton of calls. But anyway, it was a major distraction because all of a sudden I found myself embroiled in a situation where it was just a tinderbox, and there were others I was getting from other staff that other people wanted to leave, and it was really trying to put effort into righting the ship and getting everybody calmed down. But I'm not confident that I have been successful in that. So, my leadership style or work style is more old school. I just feel that I appreciate the fact that they want to have flexibility. I think most of us do. But it was really a matter of, seeing things continually not being brought forth, having to repeatedly ask for things, that, things that the board had wanted. Or things, one of my, very early in my career, a great piece of advice I was given was to anticipate the captain's questions and answer them before they were asked. So I've carried that forward in my career, and so I always try to anticipate the board's questions before they get asked. So I'm always trying to do that with staff. So, but anyway, so that was a major distraction, but now I have been working with Ellen, as noted, to develop the assistant or deputy administrator, whatever that might look like, with direction and input from the board and for consideration. So, but all in all, yes, I just let that one. I thought to a degree also that I would probably this was maybe a little bit premature, but now I no longer believe that. So,
What's premature?
that having an assistant administrator hired in that soon. I didn't think our budget could take it. So.
Maybe I'll go first here, if you don't mind. So I've done some thinking about this, and I think if you look at it, I mean, if you just go by the objectives, we're not on track. We were not on track for this objective during the year, as Mike pointed out. We did have a chance to get close to signing Doug Thomas up, but we didn't. And so, I have to give him a grade of D on this one. But on the other end, what seemed to me is that there was a challenge here to figure out how we would define the coordinator's position. In fact, to the point where you even going to Ellen now to get some help on that. And if I thought about this, the more I thought about it, I'm wondering whether, and this is not so much for the current evaluations, but I'm looking into the future, SMART objectives, that maybe hiring and naming an assistant coordinator may not be the best strategy for the watershed district. And I say that for a couple of reasons. The reason we're really doing this is because Mike's got 10 people reporting to him. And that's well above the span of control. And if you're gonna push, and now people are working from home, so we're trying to push SMART objectives and more specific objectives down to the employees because they're working from home. So you need a little bit better understanding because you're not seeing them every day in the office for those chats. And they have 8 or 9 chats and 8 or 9 performance appraisals with a heavy load. The normal span of control is 5 to 7 in business. So I always thought the reason we brought in a manager was to pick up some responsibility. So Mike had more time to work on space and other things that were new coming down the horizon with the 10-year plan. Now, so that's kind of my position on runs. We should be hiring a manager, which we did, by the way, that would pick up some responsibility and take the burden off of Mike. Also, by calling that manager a assistant administrator, I think it puts the board at a disadvantage to have more freedom in the future in case that person doesn't work out. If we say it's not going to work out, we hire somebody else, that person might leave also, which could happen. But I think we're just backing ourselves into a corner, and I would rather see hiring a manager, calling them a manager, telling them that they could possibly be an administrator if they perform well and move up. But they're only a candidate along with some other good outside candidates that we might have. So that was my take on this whole thing. So, but as far as this year, we didn't meet the target. So I think and if we decide to go ahead with the administrator, then we've got to get that done. But as far as SMART objectives go, I'm asking us to consider that option of just hiring a manager as a manager, looking for a person that will be 20% managing some people and 80% being a specialist and doing what they do as a career also very well, but picking up that additional knowledge by being in the organization, but not tying ourselves down and having the staff be discouraged by the fact somebody else has some ambitions and we've already named an assistant administrator. That could be somewhat demoralizing to the rest of the organization too. But I don't know, that's something we'll have to debate. So Mike, go ahead.
Well, just Mr. President, I do want to note that, so, our current senior program manager, Beth, does a good job of, with respect to sitting down and giving positive feedback for staff. She does, that's her like thing, if you would, you know, that she brings. She's very positive energy wise. But I just did a quarterly review. She clearly communicated last night that she did not think that any of her job included actually delivery of education outreach programming or materials. She thought her entirety of her job is just oversee the staff in the programming area. And I just like, no, that's supervisory roles are anywhere from 5 to 15% of your time. I said that this doesn't seem, you know, reasonable. So I'll fully acknowledge he does, and that's really where I was falling down on. It was I was not giving staff enough, and partly not recognizing that their needs for so much positive reinforcement is way beyond, I think, than what we were accustomed to in our work environment. We knew what the objectives were, we knew, you know, what the goals were, and we worked toward them. And, you know, was not nearly as much of, I guess, need for continued positive reinforcement. So that's, I acknowledge that I didn't recognizing the shifting workforce dynamics. But it is a challenge from that perspective.
The other option we have is hiring a manager or a coordinator is to actually just dole out some of the responsibilities to other people. You know, like for example, I think you have Emily managing the new office manager, correct? At least on a part-time basis.
He sees, well, you know, there are limited opportunities with a small organization for people to grow. So I've always encouraged them to look for different opportunities, present things, and I've been pretty receptive. When Jessica I just given her the title of Education Outreach Coordinator. In fact, just 3 or 4 months before her departure. You know, Garrett is now the AIS program specialist or something, and he was, you know, just a technician, and so a lot of people want to move up from that standpoint. So I think there are, you know, we can look to other organizations, but it's, you know, it is one of the challenges that the district has, is that, you know, we have a lot of natural resources from this perspective of lakes and wetlands as a percentage of the land area. You know, I know that when we did the analysis for Washington County, when we were looking at some of that funding stuff, we were the highest in that regard. But then as a result, that land is not going to be something where commercial or homes can be built on. So then you inversely have a lower taxable market value because that land can't be developed. And subsequently, we do have presently the highest tax rate per 100,000 in the entire metro. Then by default, I suppose, probably the state. So there are some, you know, when we talk about what the makeup is from a budgetary standpoint, you know, and I guess I still call into question, what can we afford? And then maybe, you know, if you find the right candidate, maybe I step back faster than I anticipated or planned. And that's okay, because honestly, so incredibly frustrated with where we're at internally. I'm not sure I'm gonna finish the race here. So, but I think it's important for the board to have a good conversation about this topic. It's complicated, you know, so
That's what we're trying to have, an open conversation here. So why don't we go on, I gave my vote, Manager Anderson, is on track, off track, and if on track, while reading in any comments you'd like to offer.
Well, a lot of it's been said, but, I did a C minus based on my, I didn't know we were gonna read it like that, but anyway, I did a C minus based on, you know, a lot of the things that you've said and I'll just reiterate it a little bit. As far as the, assistant administrator or office manager, I don't consider the job that the new girl Tori's doing or Bobby did before. I don't consider that an office manager or an office assistant. And so the office manager to me would have been the experienced person that had managed other people before and could take over a lot of that personnel responsibility. And some of that, if they had a natural science background and that management area, then they could have done maybe some of the other staff. So Mike wasn't burdened with everybody doing that, but I agree with that statement you made, Steve, that that's just too many people to have a quarterly touch point with and to do those kind of in-depth sit downs and all of that.
And
encouragement. And encouragement and even FaceTime. I mean, just being in the office, you know, so that if something comes up, that person, you know, can go and talk to him right then and there. There's some comfort to that. We have a lot of people who are just right out of college. And so they don't have the experience. And so having that touch point with the boss is really important. You know, that's part of mentoring is helping with the little things too, not just the big things, and getting them used to the work environment. But so I think, you know, that's part of it. Part of it's COVID. I agree with that too. I mean, that just was such a big interruption and a challenge to get people. I think our folks did well keeping the work going during that period remotely. And so, you know, kudos to them. But I do think the transition back to the office didn't go as smoothly as I would have liked. And I think part of the issue with, now this is my perspective, but part of the issue with not getting the direction to Beth implemented is that I've never seen you with the employee, it's just from observation, is that I don't think that you can separate yourself from that employee to actually be the commander, the boss. You know, it says, no, you know, you were hired for this job. You can't come in one time a week because that's not the job you were hired for. The job for office manager, for example, with the one that just left us, I shall not name her name. No, I didn't want to say it. Anyway, you know, just not understanding that her responsibility was for that job description that she was given when she was hired. So there's no question that she should have been in there at the earliest opportunity 5 days a week. So not accomplishing that, you know, I think is just, that's an area that, you know, I know in the past we've said that too, is you've got to be stronger with making sure that employees are doing what we hired them to do and in the way that we hired them to do it, you know. So we want a certain outcome, and if they're not producing that outcome, then you sit down and coach them. And if they're not coachable, then you know, goodbye, because it takes up too much of your energy and presents a bad face of the district to the public when we don't have the doors open and the lights on at the times that we're supposed to have them on and phones answered and all of that. So, you know, that is something that personally you need to work on, I think. And I know we've talked about this in different ways in the past, but that was the idea of bringing in, and I don't care if it's called assistant administrator. We kind of had this discussion when we were talking about the SMART goals, is that we were supposed to have this 5-year plan, you know, to get to the point of having a person that could take your place during that 5-year period. And so the first couple of years, I thought Mike Sandiger was interested, and you thought Victoria maybe was interested, or had the skill sets. We had that discussion.
Yeah.
And then we were going to bring one of those folks in and see if they could handle that additional responsibility and could, grow into that position. And if they couldn't, then we go to the outside and start getting that plan organized in the next 5 years. But there have been a lot of interruptions, of course, to that nicely laid out plan, and we've talked about them already. But again, I think, having more touch points from you to staff would really be important going forward so that we don't have our best people leaving. You would be on top of that right from the get-go, because you've worked with them. You could sense it. They would, moving in some of the touch points you had with them, express whatever was going on with them. So those are my comments there. And again, I just think a lot of this is you're too busy. And so whatever that position needs to be called, I think we need to have it so that I call it the office manager is what I call it, or the business manager. There's a business side to watershed district organizations. And then there's the technical side. And you've got the technical piece, but you don't have the time to devote to that other piece. And that's equally important. And so if we call it a business manager, I hope that they have some accounting background as well, because that's the other thing, is that we could eliminate a lot of work if we had a more entry point into the accounting system. And that would free up a lot of Emily's time for more grant searching and so forth. But those are things that I don't expect a person with a technical degree to have. So I'd like you to consider that. I'd like you to consider having, considering hiring someone with more business management background and personnel management background. That would relieve a lot of burden from you.
And then the feature administrator would look like that person or more in the technical?
Not necessarily. I'm talking about the relieving of your workload right now. So that you can do the things that you're good at and the things that you're not so good at and maybe don't like, can be handed to someone else with more experience in that area.
Just a couple of points on that. I think it's my impression that both the office manager and our outreach coordinator didn't report directly to you anymore. This whole past year, 20 months, they reported to someone else, right? Who was brought in to help relieve the stress on you,
Right.
Which turned out that, as you can see, she wasn't managing her people.
My understanding.
Yeah, so that is why I think if Mike had been there, in fact, Mike got things back on track by going around a little bit that person, so.
Well, I've been using our HR consultant,
Yeah.
because I was in just for clarification, and I see Manager Loth has his hand up, that Ellen, which she'll meet, again Thursday night, I think she's gonna attend, was that you need to tell Beth to give direction for that person. Because it was because that was the pushback I kept on getting. Well, if you're insisting on it, Mike, then I'll tell her that it's your directive. And I said, no, that's what you got hired for. You need to tell her. And it just never happened.
But she didn't have any supervisory experience, though, when she was hired. She wanted to be a supervisor, but she had never been a supervisor.
Mr. President, Mr. Andrew Loth has his hands up here. You want to?
Chris, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Do we have an org chart,
An org chart?
organization chart that shows the flow of, who's reporting under who and on a piece of paper? Is that something that exists?
Yes.
Is it updated as far as what the situation we currently have is?
I believe so.
While you're looking at that, I just wanted to chime in. I mean, I will tell you that the toughest part, I guess, Mike, I don't want you to feel like the things that you're frustrated with are your fault or abnormal. I think we're in a completely different business, and I think personnel and managing people is like the biggest frickin' problem and challenge that many organizations face. And so I think it just takes a lot more time than many organizations think it needs to. And also you need to have the right ratio of people that are trying to develop people, you know. Manager Anderson, you asked her whether or not like you or your replacement would need to have an office manager or someone that has a technical ability. I think everything needs to be looked at with kind of a subjective lens where, I mean, you're very strong technically. So, I mean, the next administrator may not be as technically sound, but might have more person skills. So, or an understanding or time to devote to that. So I think the org chart needs to be put together with a thought of individual strengths and weaknesses of the individuals in there, and that what the org chart looks like now is what it would look like in the future, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
As far as on track, I think I'm in like a C, but I don't think it's been dropped. I just think there's a little bit of lack of clarity around number 1. So clearly Mike has spent some time trying to address some of these things, but I guess I sense a some sort of sense from Mike that it's hard to address these specific things without getting sidetracked with some of the other extraneous things. I don't know.
Good input. Thanks, Chris. I should mention, I asked Mike to talking about managing people and that. Mike, how many candidates do we have for the last 3 or 4 positions we hired?
Yes, so for out of the last 4 positions we've hired, 3 of them we've only had 1 candidate.
That was acceptable.
Nope, that's just a period. And I know, right, we could do a broader search on it,
But I mean, we're not the only one.
And I haven't seen the ad either. It's all about the outreach.
President Schmalz? President Schmalz? Can you hear me?
President, yes.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Roth, that question.
No, Chris, go ahead.
Does the lack of candidates have anything to do? Is it how far the outreach is? Is it a function of what we're offering? What do we think the hurdle is to just getting few candidates? I mean, I feel like we have a story to tell that should attract people to the organization. But maybe I'm just too far, maybe my blinders are on from not seeing other things outside of what we deal with, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a couple of factors. Forest Lake is perceived to be, not really metro. So there's some limitations on draw. People want to live and work downtown. EOR even had to move their office a few years ago to University Avenue because there were a lot of complaints about people not wanting or not living in the metro, and they were just in right off of 94 and 694 there. So that's been a factor that I've heard. The metros can also typically pay better than what our salary chart calls for. And then I think just right now, I mean, when I started and we applied, I'd say for the first 5 years, if I had a technician position, I was getting 50 to 60 applicants, sending them basically through the same, doing the same types of outreach. We have one, like it's a conservation something or another. We pay $25 and it goes nationwide. So it's a conservation job board, that's what it's called. So then there's a number of them around the metro that get well looked at, and then this last time we even were using Indeed, so pushing it a little farther than we normally had just because of what we were seeing from a hiring pattern. So on the education outreach coordinator, so Adam starts tomorrow. We did have a dozen applications. I think we interviewed 5 of them. That were, showed good, they were well qualified. So that was encouraging.
Is it important?
To the question, I think we need as a board to dig into that with some ideas and so forth as we move forward. Because it's gonna be a challenge. You know, in the technical area especially, I've heard that there's 3 or 4 jobs for every good technical person out there, and so because so many people are retired with all this experience from when we grew up, so it's gonna be a challenge.
Do you find that problem in the technical areas though, where you're not getting more than one candidate?
EOR is communicating the same thing I've talked about.
Yeah, is that because we've expanded into these one watershed, one plans and all the SWCDs are hiring people on their,
Retiring.
on that, well, I think it has a lot to do with the SWCDs too. It's hiring more people with that capacity money.
There is some of that, but well, one is, yes, the federal government right now, Inflation Reduction Act, the local, had a conversation last month with one of the local conservation federal employees, and I said, did you get, how much, did you get a lot of money through that? He goes, oh yes, more than we'll ever be able to spend. So they're contracting out and hiring and whatever else. So there is a floodgate of a lot of money in conservation in Minnesota. And then add on to the federal component, and so I'm not right. So that kind of gets to some of the other topics, but
Doug?
I'm still kind of looking at this from the fact that we're looking at fixed action planning, I think is really pretty admirable. I've worked in organizations where that was not even thought about because they were starting to think about it. So having it still on the map, even though we didn't do very well this year, I think it was a good idea. And it was kind of on off halfway of each, but I knew about a C. We do need to get the staffing back together. Maybe I'm old school too. I think we need to have people in the chair. Then we can go to more than so that's kind of off the side of this, but I think getting a second person in this really strong officer manager.
Okay, I think that's a good.
figure out.
It's gotta be 60% of your work time. Staff and office related things,
Well, and that's honestly part of the problem though, is I haven't been. I mean, I've always dedicated more of my time towards the mission and the goals on the technical piece. And why, then I don't know if the board is familiar with the disc profile piece. Should maybe have the board take it sometime with Ellen. Seriously, but anyway, I use it and we share that collaboratively for everybody to understand what their strengths and their weaknesses are. So I've long understood before I started using this that I need to hire for my weakness. I don't need to hire for another one of me. I need to hire for people that do excel at things that I don't really enjoy sitting down doing. I mean, one of the things early on, yes, I can put together a spreadsheet. The first work plan, I built it, yes, I can do that. Do I love it? No. But Emily, she's the longest running employee besides me. She's been here 9 years. And it was a skill that I saw early at the very beginning in the hiring. And I said, okay, I
Mhm.
don't need a technician to go in the field. I need somebody to do all this other work, and she's really excelled at that. So, so there has been this trying to attempt to do the balancing. The challenge is that through the work plan and the changes in the organization direction, both through the watershed management plan and elsewhere, is then lining up and to the staff, I say it's like a game of Tetris, that I need to start to figure out who's gonna do what. And then the balance, we will hire out, either through contracted work or maybe it just doesn't get done. Depending on budgetary limitations or whatever it is. But it is a constant process of evaluation to get people. And I also just really encourage staff to keep leaning on each other. So, we try to make that, and I recognize same thing, some staff, if they don't want to be public facing, they don't want to go talk to somebody, then I'm not going to ask them to do that. So that's been, and others are very good at that. So, that's the, lean into those strengths that each individual has. But then it's also just a matter of, you never know for sure after a couple hours of interviewing what you're getting until the person arrives in the office and starts working for you. So.
Manager Schmaltz.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
This is Dave Baki.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment a little bit about our process here. It seems we're getting a little bit off track. This goal is focused on succession planning, which really doesn't have anything to do with office staff managing and job descriptions. That should be a separate goal. So as we make goals for next year, I think we got to be clear about what it is we're targeting and work from that perspective. I just want to move things along a little bit because I think we're getting bogged down in this clearly a separate goal from succession planning.
No, I think you're right, Manager Baki, and I'd let it go on because I think it's good to get input on what some of the issues were here because we have to work on our SMART plans, as you mentioned. And this provides good background on terms of the good things and the bad things that came out in the discussion that helps us work on those. So as we move forward, so we'll move it along. We've only got one more to go to here. Well, that would be, again, I thought we had a good discussion there, even though it was a little lengthy. Number 2, which has to do with the issue we had with ISG and trying to figure out what we're going to do with space. And maybe Mike wants to make a few comments other than what he wrote down here, and we'll get into discussing that also.
Right, the ISG report was late. They were originally contracted. I just looked it up. I think it was going to be done last summer. We didn't even do our first open house until June, and the second one did not get scheduled until November, first week in November. So, but we did feel it was important to go through the process, just like we did with the watershed management plan, to get input from the public as much as possible. So we have that. So, and then one of the other, bigger, things, of course, is funding. I think it's hard for the board to conceptualize what a space would look like without, having a lot of confidence. So it's a little bit of chicken and the egg. We talked about having a concept drawn up and then maybe going and asking for money. There are some grants potentially that we could go after. And that is a decision I think that President Schmaltz has asked, is it going to be a building we buy or something? But still, so we do have something coming up here with this Access Philanthropy, and I think that they have talked with President Schmaltz and Manager Anderson. Is that right? So
Yeah, we just talked this morning.
yeah, okay. And so yeah, that one, we don't have the current or the new current office space under contract for an extension, but Manager Anderson is leading that effort, and I'm going to provide assistance. We do have really what the space planning needs are, so through that ISG piece, and there had been small spurt of a start internally about looking just for what properties would be available. Not necessarily, most of the properties that would probably be of interest if we were to rank them are properties not currently for sale. And so, and I think that that's still the strategy. My sister's a rural land appraiser, and still to this day, most rural properties are purchased without a realtor involved, 80% of them, in fact. So, just through word of mouth or people knocking on doors.
Okay, very good. Again, let's go through and then, on track or off track, and then if on track, Elaine, and then any comments or suggestions, you can offer would be appreciated. Manager, I'll start with you.
Oh, I don't have a lot of comments on this one. I would have to say a B on this one. And, you know, some of it is, I think not recognizing that ISG probably should have been fired a little bit early, bringing that to the board, because they just did not respond quickly at all. And I don't understand that. Did you ever get an explanation from them? Not that it matters, but it's, I don't.
They turn over as well. I mean,
Oh, is that right?
They went from somebody else to this Jack, and then Jack
Okay,
left in early November, then we
gotcha, okay.
ended up. So.
Well, I think we talked about doing an RFP for this at one point, and we went with ISG because
Right.
they had a good reputation and so forth. But maybe that's something we should rethink, and bring that up to the board and bring to the meeting, and then do an RFP for the next phase, which would be the architectural design and the ability to help with evaluating properties. And as far as that goes, you know, I made this suggestion some months ago when this was up at a board meeting. I don't think the use of staff time is good to do this. We can hire a commercial real estate person that can provide all of the properties that are known and unknown to the public, and help evaluate those opportunities. And that's their background. I just don't think we want to use the staff for something that they don't have any background in, and to take time away from them.
Some comments, how would you, on track and resolve, how would you rate this?
Well, I said a B. Yeah. Mhm.
Just a point of clarification that, just make sure I understand. Mike wasn't directly responsible for ISG project, but assigned to another person, correct, Mike?
Oh, yes, but ultimately, I mean, I'm still
Responsible, but I'm
Yeah.
saying, but this gets back to this other situation we had to deal with, so. Okay, Chris, you want to have any comments on this?
Yes, please. With respect to Mike's 2023 goals as stated, I think it's a C+, but I also think there are, just like with number one, I think there is ongoing conversation and questions on whether or not, you know, the goals when he wrote these are where we currently, you know, think is the best path forward. It seems to be easily get off track on these number one and number two. I think the work that ISG did was okay, but I don't think I'm personally not, you know, I'm not sure. I can get off topic, but I guess that's where I'm at with this number two.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
I would say we're still sort of on track with this. It seems like we kept doing the same thing overall. We kept studying and asking for more information. We need the next step beyond that.
I'm sorry, Doug. I cannot hear you. I don't know if Manager Baki can hear you, but we can hear you, but it's very mumbled. So I don't know if you can move closer to Mike's computer or talk louder. Thank you.
My apologies.
No problem. That's much better.
I'm trying. I was talking out of the back of the head there. It's kind of a sort of on, sort of off, but I gave it a B. It seemed like we were in a endless cycle of studying and gathering information and not getting a step completed and the next step recommended. I think Manager Anderson's suggestion there that we aggressively take the next step so we can find out where we are and start really either digging into this thing or back away from it and find some suitable location in town that we can just take over for a short time or a long time. I think we need a space. We have the need for our own space. I mean, this meeting here is an example of that very need. I think looking forward to the funding is also a next good step out there. So we have a couple of things that are in the motion. That's where I'm at. So.
Thank you, Doug. Again, I rated this, see also. One of the things we can do, and this is kind of what Anderson was talking about, we need to get down and write some of the stuff that we have to get done. Now, we may not get all the things, but we know we need a piece of property. We've been doing a real estate agents look for that also, but we have already found some good properties that just on our own. So by using our own time in the field and knowing what we're looking for, we're going to identify some properties. But what has to be done, and then if we can do some of it ourselves, fine. If not, we need somebody to lead us forward. When do we bring in an architect in? Is it too soon? Is it too late? You know, this is something, so I'm hoping that this new consultant that we're working with right now can hopefully do more than maybe just fundraising, because we need somebody to tell us what. And the other thing I was going to mention is that I think this is more than just a new build. We need also to look at the idea of finding rental space, or at least determining we don't have any rental space, we probably don't. But we also got to look at the idea of buying an existing building or an existing home and then refurbishing that over time, in addition to looking at the new build with the new property. So I think all three of those have to be, and each area has to have its own steps involved, and we need somebody to help coordinate and get us down the path and get us moving on that.
Well, that's what ISG was supposed to have done, because they
I
have
know.
complements, and there are other firms out there that do all of that as well. So the RFP process, you know, is something I think that we need to explore, but you're gonna put that on another meeting agenda, right? We're not gonna talk about that today.
No,
but
no.
We'll talk about.
Well, we got good comments from everybody
We
today.
did, yeah, we did.
I'll capture those.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right, good. Well, let's move on then to the last point for the 2023, and that was investigating an application for Bowser to do a strategic planning process. And Mike, you want to comment more about that in terms of what happened to where we are and what we think we should be doing?
Thinking of some other stuff. We did our ISG contract with back in February 2021.
Okay, for the audio
Yeah.
experience.
So. Let's see. Yeah, I got one. So I'm just trying to pull it up for.
Just tag on to those comments, and what kind of remote campaigns that you know jobs that we're looking at. Until you have something that you can be excited. It's kind of once you have that, you know, the sketch for that, you know, things that model stuff together, and you know what it's going to accomplish for us.
The value proposition.
Now, yeah, exactly. Now you can take it to them and say, this is what we need to do. Okay.
Trying to ask the customer to guess what's in the box and I'll sell it to you.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for you.
Yeah. So on the PRAP, so one of the challenges here really that we had was, well, one was getting, I guess, really buy-in. There was, I know, some feedback from the board that we had the watershed management plan versus a strategic plan, whether it was necessary or not. The other was, frankly, trying to find an entity that would suit our needs. And so I had laid out, you know, at least where we're currently at with that. But I do think that that's going to go hand in hand with the office building piece, a really component that I've in several conversations with people. Well, and I just know that I've had various individuals ask, where is our strategic plan on our website? Well, we don't have one. So, and you look at the agencies and others, and on whether or not, then again, but it's really an executive level document of our watershed management plan. I don't think I know it's gonna be a very voluminous thing or very lengthy in time and scope. At least that's not what I would anticipate. Some of these strategic plans are only, you know, a couple pages. So, and I know that our local school districts have them as well, and that's, you know, they continue to refer to them and provide that information, give that out to the public in terms of this is the direction we're going strategically.
Okay, start with Chris. Chris, have any thoughts on this? On track, and if so, how would you rate it? Suggestions?
I think we're on track, but a little bit behind schedule.
Okay. So how would you rate that? Just so I
Oh,
have.
sorry, be mine.
Okay. Any other comments?
No, I think I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Dave, Doug?
I have to admit, I kind of lost track of this one. You should have value in it, but I don't recall. It's on track with.
Can't hear Doug again, sorry.
I'd call it on track with a B. I've kind of lost focus on this one, so that's on me. But I don't recall the discussions of the grant being a grant application and the RFP and stuff, so maybe we're off track. Did we do it?
No, we didn't do it. Any of them. Okay, I'll go next. I rated this, as I said before, I don't think we did any of these activities, so we're really fairly on track. I would give it a C. We have a 10-year plan, which is moving us away from lake focus to a couple other areas that we can get into. So I think it's important to help us with a shorter document and condense that appetite we have to get interested in everything. So I think this would be a very worthwhile project. I saw a couple of examples that actually sent 2 examples around in your review. I looked at the one and it was just a one little box, and I thought it was weird and sweet. And I think we could do this. You know, we're having some hard discussions, but we'll have to make the decision. But the other one was quite lengthy, and I think it was just a short version of our 10-year plan, which we don't want to repeat that. So I think this is important, and I think and when we get some help, we can move forward with it. The question is this a new person or is it somebody else help with the one that we have right now? Funding project.
It'll be different.
Okay.
Yeah, the funding will be different than, so this.
But they've done strategic plans for people. Yeah, I looked at the website.
Okay,
Yeah, I went through the whole website.
yeah, I think you'll be,
More impressed with this guy. I haven't gone through.
well, this firm,
Yeah.
they do for nonprofits as well, so, you know, a lot of more business enterprises and things like that, but, our initial conversations with them are. I'm encouraged, I'll just say that.
Okay. Jackie?
Oh, I didn't rate this at all because I don't think it's needed. I think, well, it's true.
No, I know.
I think-
That's why we have a discussion.
The discussion, the way this just ended, kind of encapsulates my thought, is that we have a 10-year plan. The strategic plan to me is based on our annual budgets. You know, as you go down and refine that 10-year plan year by year by year. But what's needed is to make basically an executive summary or a mission statement, if you will, with some background that explains to people why the district exists. And as Mike mentioned, we're in a transition period right now, and that certainly can be brought into this. I don't see it being more than 2 pages, though, honestly, and that would be long. but it's just taking the mission statement, the philosophy of operation that the district has, putting it out there in the public, you know, and in this period of time, we did, you know, these projects, and, you know, blah, 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 working from the headwaters down to the end point of the district, that kind of thing, so people can understand, you know, really how we're operating and how we intended it, is all this work is intentional. And it's, you know, the goal is the clean water at the end, and we can even put in there where we're at to date. You know, our little charts, you know, going to completion. We've been doing that now for about 8-10 years. And even using that and updating that every year is important, and the focus of that year. So I think EOR can do this for us. They do this all the time. And so I think that we can use the people who know us the best. And they can get it done very quickly for us. And we don't have to interview any companies and bring them to speed on who we are and what we've done. So.
How would you rate the on track for your understanding?
Well, I didn't rate it. So. Because I just don't think it's necessary. There have been some efforts made, I know that, to reach out to other companies, but that's to me wasted time that Mike doesn't need to be wasting. He's got, you know, too many other things to do when we've got a source, in my opinion, that can dive right in here and probably get it done in 2 weeks.
I agree with you. It would be helpful to have a capsule of what our 10-year plan is with some understanding of how we got started, what our background is and so forth. But on the other hand, we're still struggling with, you know, we're not gonna be doing water quality on lakes much longer and for a long period of time unless we start managing that little goal we have. We need to branch out into some other areas. And I don't sense that we have a clear agreement on what those should be. We've got climate,
resiliency,
we have flood protection, we've got shorelines where we're standing right now, and if that's what it is,
Greenway corridor,
right?
that's gonna take a number of years.
If that comes up, that needs to be kind of maybe.
Well, we knew this from the beginning, though, is that when you're done with the projects, you know, you're done with all the heavy lifting. And so then it becomes more program oriented.
Mhm.
And those programs, you know, are important. Measuring the lakes at all times, that's gonna be absolutely critical to make sure that we don't fall off the cliff again.
Yeah.
So, and then doing the Greenway project, that's gonna take a decade to probably implement. We can never get started on it, but you know, that's gonna take a long time. And it's important, and that would be part of this, you know, executive summary or strategic plan, whatever you wanna say, call it. That would be important to have that updated every year based on, make the general statement, of course, but then update it so that you are moving the public with us, so that they know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Okay,
And then you always had those smaller lakes, you know, that district wanted to get into. And so we could blend those into future years, but they're not significant contributors of pollutant right now into Sunrise, so we don't need it.
No, thank you, Manager Anderson, Mr. President. Yeah, the water quality will continue from perspective of both monitoring, but the algae treatments are not intended to be like a forever thing. Physical removal, like the Matson Farm and Northeast Bone wetland and what we're doing now, those are permanent removal. Some of the other stuff will be ongoing, plus the maintenance component of the system that we do have in place. So those will continue to be fairly notable activities in both of our budget and work plan. So, you know, on the other is just like this, getting all of these lakes, and we do have 20 water bodies that are classified as lakes. So we have 6 that we're concerned about getting, you know, standard. But for most of us that were doing this 20 years ago well, I mean, even 10 years ago, the consensus was this in Lower St. Croix, that's a 100-year plan. right? So that's their version. So we've been able to do it in 10, so.
They've already met all their goals.
Yeah, so, but I just want to add on that, yeah, so, good.
Okay, this completes the 2023 review. I will put these thoughts together and into a single document. And then David, if you have a chance, if you could send me your thoughts on any of
Yes,
these, like to.
President Schmaltz, if I can just, I apologize for not being prepared for this meeting, but I certainly will send you an email with my thoughts regarding these 6 goals that we discussed tonight. I think in response to Chris's recent message that he put up, in all fairness to Mike, I think what we've learned this last in working with these goals is they need to be clear. Our SMART goals are not clear and they're really not measurable. And I think that's why we're struggling with some of the feedback we're trying to get to. I agree with you, Steve, that this has been a good discussion. It's really opened our eyes to a lot of important issues that can help us move forward. But as we go into 2024, we got to clean up these SMART goals so we know what we're measuring. And rather than using the old school A, B, C, D, F, we need to talk about, I like your term of being on track or off track, or the goal was achieved or not achieved, or making progress. I think that's much better than saying it's an A or a B or a C, because nobody really knows what that means. So I just wanted to give you that feedback before I sign off today.
I have to make this comment.
Right.
Bring a little levity to it, hopefully. I thought this is not my favorite way to do reviews, but I thought this was all gonna rest on Steve and Doug and Dave, I mean. So you were gonna meet with Mike, you were gonna spend the time refining things and so forth, and so we just would be, giving you comments at the review period, because the quarterly reviews, started out with the 2 of you, so
Yeah, the question is, that's the other thing we have to talk about, is that we do not do the quarterly reviews. That's part of my fault, not
Yeah.
forcing it through, but this year we have to have people assigned to each
Yeah.
of those reviews, a timetable, and I'll be following up on that probably
Yeah.
one of our latter meetings, so we get people assigned, and I will definitely follow up on that.
Mhm.
But you're right, if we have that, it'll get more people involved, and it'll also give Mike an opportunity to let us know how it's going, our organization as well.
That's the only explanation I can give you for not actually picking up on 25% of the levy. I read what I expected to see, I suppose.
Yeah,
You want Spocky's input on this, and maybe try to refine these some more? The 2024 ones?
oh, I thought maybe we would talk about it real quick. We've got 15 minutes left. Why don't we go through them very quickly, and then if anybody has comments on these, we could then begin to, Manager Baki and I could begin to look at them. Did you pass, give Manager Anderson a copy?
Well, I have them here. I just,
Well,
I
I
had 'em
fell
all.
around with my comments on them.
I have that too.
Maybe point one here, one point. They're talking about the 2024.
Yeah.
Draft. Oh, there's more than one.
I made some comments on each one.
Okay. I never realized, there's something about it when I machine before.
I just sent this today. So that's for you in your mail, but probably around noon.
Here we go. Here's mine. You want this? You got it.
I got that too.
Okay.
Well, the first one has to do with the administration and with the assistant district administrator, and I kind of summarized and read here what I talked about earlier when we were actually reviewing 2023. That, we need to decide whether we're gonna do an assistant administrator, assistant district administrator, or whether again, the goal should be to reduce the span of control, and then whether we do that with a manager or a district manager, administrator, or just doling out the responsibilities to some of the people that might have an interest in trying to expand their capacity for work.
Of our existing employees.
Right.
Do they have time to do those extra duties? That's the thing. That's
President,
what,
President Schmalz,
Yes,
is it
Yes.
possible to get, the document that was sent out with respect to the 2024 goals up for,
Yes.
Manager Baki and I to see?
Yes.
Thank you.
Manager Schmaltz, and as Mike is pulling that up, I think this is an area where we need to identify that goal. We discussed at length about office staff managing and job descriptions and separate that from succession planning. Those are two different things.
in a way they are, yes.
They're very much different. Succession planning is about when Mike leaves, what's going to happen.
Office manager is making sure Mike has what he needs to be successful now.
Correct, but the concept of an assistant administrator is the concept of having someone that's functional today that takes some of the work off of Mike's plate, but also has the potential of growing into that position.
It could
So, I
happen,
can
but it
see where
doesn't
business-
necessarily have to, right? I mean, I understand what you're saying, and that's really good if that natural progression can happen. But I don't think it's a requirement for Mike to get the support that he needs in the office to make sure that the office is functioning properly on a personnel level now, like tomorrow.
No, but there's three options for doing that. To address the span of control issue, you can either bring somebody in that could either be a manager or described as a assistant district administrator, or you could actually then just have the people assume more responsibility within the organization from a supervisory aspect. Much like we've done now, we had the office manager reporting to the so-called office manager reporting to Emily. To have issues with. So if somebody else, we could do a couple of those and then.
we'll call it the
Free time
assistant
makeup.
to the administrator. Okay, add the two in there and, TO. And then you get what you want.
It sounds like Mike could use this person like yesterday.
Yeah,
based on the-
2 years
So
ago.
We have
why,
one.
why,
Well, we've had one for the past 20 months.
well, who left? Who are we talking about? Are we allowed to talk about that?
Sure. Bobby
I mean,
left.
I have an email that I wrote out because I was not aware of some of these personnel changes, and I'm not sure if it's the purview of the board to understand what's going on, but if it is, I think those need to be communicated better so we understand. I mean, if we're sitting here trying to measure Mike against some goals and trying to come up with goals in a collaborative manner, I think we need to understand some of the, I mean, what Mike shared with me today is, I guess it's new to me as far as some of his candid remarks with respect to challenges in the office, personnel wise.
I think that's fair,
Right. Well,
fair comment.
so, and some of it, so Ellen Hendricks, I did invite her to Thursday night's meeting, so we do have it on the agenda to continue my performance review, so we can go into this conversation. Because they are related. So, and I think it's, I mean, this is about my review, but certainly a lot of the challenges I had to do was with respect to getting Beth to really see herself from a leader point of view. Her style is entirely employee point of view, not wanting, I repeatedly was told Bobby could not come in more than 1 day a week, otherwise we'll lose her. And I said, well, that's not an option. I said, she's gotta, and I continued to get the pushback and she just refused. And then I learned last night or late yesterday during her quarter review that she actually was aware of the pending departure for about 3 months, of both her and Jessica. So rather than helping support for keeping them on staff, she was helping them leave. And I also, I mean, so Beth, she's super good at building partnerships and relationships. That's all, that's really her thing. But what's happened is that she's built the relationships with the staff around her and not around the organization. So one of the challenges I had to her is like, well, you went to this place to speak and this place to speak. She's in different committees. And I said, how many Lake Association meetings have you been to? How many CAC meetings have you been to? How many presentations have you been to? The answer is 0 on all of them. And she says, well, I didn't know it was my job to actually be going out and talking, implementing outreach programs for the district. And I said, I don't understand that, because I said it's pretty clear in both the job description, but also just the ongoing needs of the district. So, so her and I are really at odds of how we move forward. And unfortunately, right now, I would be concerned that if, and I know Alan has cautioned me, that trying to, I'm not sure there's a very good way out in any regard, other than making sure that I have many of my T's crossed and my I's dotted, with respect to direction and other things, with her. But, you know, there's been a whole bunch of things that continue to occur where, for whatever reason, we took Tori out for lunch as a first-time person. And I said, okay, fine, you know, I had overheard Beth saying, well, you know, I understand it's a district's practice, we do this. And I said, okay, you know, I heard her tell somebody else that. And when I was in the office, and then the day that we went, I, you know, went to lunch. I did not know that they pulled out the district credit card and paid for lunch at Juan Julio's. Well, I think if Blake Roberts or somebody else found out the district was using taxpayer dollars to go buy lunch for everybody and spend an hour and a half there, that was not the kind of service that we want to provide to the public. So just a poor reflection. So it's, but those ongoing little things that, you know, same with like, you know, there was an open sign on a timer that Bobby put on there because nobody could seem to get to the office at 8 o'clock. And I said, I don't understand this. I said, there's 10 of us. I said, I'm supportive of flex scheduling. I said, but whoever is assigned to the office needs to be at the office at 8 a.m. So, and that just wasn't happening. So it's kind of one of those really, and Manager Loth, you know, as well. I mean, this workforce is different, and maybe that's just what we're stuck with. So, I mean, it's not an option, I think, to just put the hammer down. So, and I just really struggle with that kind of work. I mean, because for me, when they talk about life-work balance, I'm always struck by it, because I just feel like, well, this is more of a vocation for me. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I like the challenge that the district offers me. I don't mind putting in some extra time because I enjoy it. It's the same when I was working on the farm or on the ship. 12-hour day, no big deal. 15-hour day, no big deal. You know, I'm not going to work that here, but still, there are some real challenges that we're seeing, and I'm honestly struggling with some of it, because it's easy to hand out candy and ice cream all day long, but at the same time, when taxpayers or contractors and stuff want you to give them some meat and potatoes and we can't deliver it, then that's a challenge, you know. And that was the thing that kind of where it all blew up in August, is that there were 3 different contractors pounding on the door after 4 o'clock, complaining they could not get a hold of anybody, trying to get a permit.
So Manager Schmaltz,
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
if I may jump in, this is Dave. Again, it comes back to clarifying a goal about having clear job descriptions, and that we can have that as part of the goal for Mr. Kinney. I know it gets very complex, but we've got to be clear about these goals and what the expectations are, just as they are for the employees. So there isn't any confusion as we move forward.
Yeah, I doubt that the position description wasn't clear, because I've seen a lot of them so far since I've been here that Mike has written. I think the issue is we hired a management person and we got a union representative. So a different perspective in terms of what they're there for.
Mr. Lopez is saying that as well.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
well,
I can't see. Yeah.
I agree with what Manager Baki said with respect to really clarifying some of these goals, but I think a lot of this conversation is extremely important, and I just want to make sure that as we move forward and try to improve this process, that we make it clear when we're trying to talk about past goals and evaluate Mike against those versus talking about future ones and whether or not those make sense, instead of trying to do both at once, which we kind of started doing earlier today. With respect to the credit card usage, I mean, I know what you're saying, Mike, but in 2024, you know, for federal or local government agencies to act like there's there's got to be some sort of, I mean, what's the norm here? I mean, I'm completely in the private sector and, you know, realize that private businesses can do as they wish with respect to, you know, comping and treating employees to things, but I would be surprised if,
It's
you
not
know,
part,
This, yeah, well, the statute.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mike.
The public purpose doctrine for the state of Minnesota by statute does not allow the district to spend money on that in that kind of fashion.
That's
So-
a problem.
Right, there's a very clear problem, and I was just really surprised because I was prepared to, because normally if we do a lunch, everybody buys their own, and then I buy whoever is that we're, you know, birthday or going away or whatever it is.
So
So I
that's
was
allowed?
prepared- I buy it out of my pocket.
Oh, gotcha.
So, and everybody else buys their own. So that, and I thought that's what we were doing. So I was surprised, and all of a sudden I saw the district credit card going to the waiter, but if apparently everybody was told that the district was buying lunch other than me. So I wasn't gonna stand there and make a scene in front of everybody saying, well, no, you guys gotta split this up and pay for it.
when was that?
Sure.
When did that happen?
Just the previous week here. You'll see it in the next, yeah, you'll see it in the next round.
Next month.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say, treasurer's review on Friday. I looked at the credit card bills, but it's for the prior month.
Right, you'll see it in February.
Anything unusual, I have to see an explanation for it.
So,
Give the best for her to cover.
Hmm? Yeah, give her cover.
You won't do it again.
Well, it's not part of the credit card policy that we have right now. It needs to be updated. But that is not an approved way to use the credit cards. So, yeah.
I'm just, right, I'm flabbergasted.
Mhm. You and I should talk after the meeting here and.
Right, I have done working lunches where I brought in pizza
Yeah.
or sandwiches, but then we are at the table
Mhm.
and we are working conversation. It's not just,
Well, you and I, Maybe-
can you do both at once? I mean,
Do what?
I'm torn here. I mean, I had no idea. It's a problem if that's not allowed, right? If that's goes against whatever doctrine we're talking about, that's a problem. But I also think it's a problem to not have any sort of flexibility when it comes to team building and doing these types of things. And I have no idea what the standard is for an LGU and with respect to
I previously
understand
talked
what
to
I'm
Chuck.
saying?
I previously talked to Chuck about it, so that was his guidance, is that like doing in office. Working lunches would be acceptable. Because you've got the team there, you've brought everybody in, and you're buying pizza or Jimmy John's or something like that. And then you're going over some plan or document or some, whatever it is. And so I've done that, you know, probably a couple times a year. Not so much of course in COVID timeframe, but I've never taken in the whole staff out for lunch and just use a credit card, you know, so that, and I actually checked with some private sector folks, including EOR, that's not a common practice. You know, just, yes, they do some stuff that they, you know, but it's not, that would not be. If you're taking out a client and things like that, of course, it's different, and those are business write-offs, but often even from what I'm gathering, it's not even a common practice in private sector.
Not for a brand new employee on the first day. No.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes left here before 5 o'clock, and I'd like to stick to our timetable today. We did go through the 2023 objectives, and I think Dave Baki's right. We probably should just have a special effort on this 2024 effort. So I'm gonna ask everybody to look at what I sent out with my comments on them, and then send back to me or back to Mike and as a copy to me your suggestions, and then we'll have another meeting to try to work through it then after Mike's had a chance to look at it. What would be a reasonable time to get back to me with your thoughts on the 2024, based upon the comments we've heard today and so forth? Next week sometime?
I need at least that much time
Yeah,
to do this well. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm just trying to get a feel.
Well, and I think we have a pretty good start here, because some of these, if you spend the time with them, they are clear, there are elements to them, and they are put timeline on them, so, I think we're in pretty good shape on.
Okay. So what about a week from Friday, or you want to do the following Monday?
yeah, give us 2 weekends.
So we'll do I don't know the date here, but we'll do a week from Monday. I'll send out a note again, send you a copy of what I want you to look at, and it's got some of my thoughts on it. I've got additional thoughts, but I didn't have time to put them down. And then we'll set that date, and we'll have maybe get a separate meetings after that sometime to go over it.
February 5th, I'm out of town. But you're gonna get them.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
You're gonna set a
Yeah.
meeting afterwards, okay.
So you have to look at them and put your thoughts down. We have to get together after that. Then.
Okay, and you and I should probably meet.
Right.
Manager Baki, when are you planning to be back in town?
I'm moving here permanently. I'm tired of Minnesota weather. Just kidding.
Somebody
Um,
after you, huh?
Well, I'll be back on Saturday, so.
Well,
So I'll
we're
be
already
available to
into
meet.
Illinois winters with this weather.
Better hurry up. You're gonna miss spring.
That's funny. Okay.
Party at Dave's house tonight.
Yeah, my son's already there and he's got one going, so just pop on in the door and join in.
Okay,
February 5th, you want?
yeah, so I'm gonna, yeah, and I'll send a note out when I get back tonight.
Okay.
So let's, I'll entertain a motion to, sorry, what, Mike?
We'll have to just,
Oh, we have to stop. We have to, I'm gonna move out of closed session
okay.
and, stop the recording, and we'll move it.